much to do, and you've got nothing more to lose, so take this number and welcome to Operation Mindcrime. We're an underground revolution working overtime. Operation Mindcrime. There's a job for you in the system, boy, with nothing to sign. This is the Community Solutions Podcast. Jason Bradley and Andrew Richter burning the whole place down. Back for another week.
Operation Minecraft?
Yeah, Minecraft.
Okay.
That's what I said.
That
Well,
sounds
glad you're
familiar.
listening.
That sounds familiar to me.
It might. It might.
Give me a second. Let me ponder. Minecraft. I know Minecraft from somewhere.
It's not Minecraft.
Oh, what is it?
Mindcrime.
Might crime?
Mind crime.
Mind crime. As in thinking of a crime.
Yes.
Mind crime.
Like the thought crimes
Oh,
of
the thought
1984.
police. Oh,
or
okay.
something like that, maybe.
Oh, God, I do know this, too. But I don't. If that makes any sense.
You've probably heard it. You know, this is...
Well, that doesn't say anything.
Back in our heyday.
Yeah. What's this our heyday stuff? Was I around when Henry Ford built his first car?
Back in '06.
Yeah.
No. No guesses? Well, I gave you the title of the song.
I want to say it's not. I don't know how you. It's Queen something, right?
What do you mean?
It's like Queen Stripe, Queen Strike.
Queensryche?
Is that it?
Yes.
That's it?
Yeah.
That's it.
I thought there's no way you're getting this one.
No, I've heard of that song.
Yeah.
And I know who that I can't pronounce them.
Queensryche, yeah.
But I've heard of that band.
I
mean, I've heard of it. It's kind of like they're good friends of mine, as in I've seen them on TV and never actually met them.
I've seen them in concert.
Really? Where? Where did they play?
I saw them in Duluth back in like 90, I don't know when it was, 92 maybe.
I'm giving myself extra credit for that one.
That was a tough one. I thought, there's no way he's getting this one.
Well, tell you what, sometimes out of the mouths of babes comes a gem.
That's 2 in a row. I mean, last week it was Guns N' Roses' Paradise City.
You're going to have to get tougher at this.
I thought I was by picking Operation Mindcrime from Queensryche. It's their best album. I mean, you can't even argue that. But the fact that I don't even think that was really a hit. You have I Don't Believe in Love, which was,
yeah, I know that. I've heard that song.
Yeah. Well, it was a super popular album for them. So I guess, Eyes of a Stranger was their other big hit.
Oh, maybe I'm getting hipper. Maybe the 80s or 90s are coming to me now.
Yeah, maybe that's it. You're finally starting to remember what happened 30 years ago.
Maybe. You play a Pearl Jam song or something, I might remember it too.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean... So
for those of you that are new to the podcast.
Yes, and if you want to check it out, go to Spotfly, right?
Yeah. For those of you that are new to the podcast, every week I start out with some song lyrics that have something to do with the topic that we're discussing, and Andrew tries to guess them and usually fails miserably. He's been kicking my butt the last few weeks. You've got like 3 out of 4.
Yeah, there was a Beatles song in there too.
3 out of 4. I gotta really dig deep into the archives and pull some. But yeah, so he tries to guess it. I throw the song up every week on our Spotify playlist, which is Community Solutions music from the podcast, and you can go search that out. We've got a whole list of great rock and roll tunes that we play this game with to open the show with every week. So
how did this evolve? I just want to know. How did this start?
I think because I was looking for a way to open the show, and being a musician, I really don't know anything else except music. So I'm kind of like a human jukebox, but I mean, you're kind of kicking my butt here. So
now wait a minute. That's like 6 out of 112. I had like a
pay bucks up until the year they changed their uniforms and stadium and won the Super Bowl.
That's true. I was like the St. Louis Browns of guessing music for a while.
Yes, you were.
Oh,
or the Cleveland Browns of today.
Yeah, them too.
Either way. All right. So welcome to the podcast. Here we are yet again. We've got some great info for you today. We're going to have a little bit of fun with this, just to kind of show that the crazy levels that local government will stoop to in trying to find things to do. But we'll get to that in just a little bit.
Can I ask a quick question first before we get into that?
Absolutely.
I just have to bring up something about the I know people are probably sick of hearing about the presidential race. I just need to bring up something real quick. If I'm down in Klobuchar level, that's what I call the 1, 2, 3% down there.
Yeah, well, she's doing better than a lot of them.
Don't know, don't care, no opinion. If I'm down at that level, why doesn't one of them come out with like some ridiculous bold statement, or hear me out, a bold policy statement about something?
Well, they have
to distinguish. No. I don't mean trying to out Bernie. That's not what I mean.
Oh, no.
I mean, why doesn't one of them come out and say, something about how tough they're going to be on the border, or how tough they're going to be on China, or how they're 100% against any talk of impeachment or anything like. I mean, worst case scenario, you get yourself about a month of free press. You'll be on every Sunday show that nobody watches. Right. The Twitter will blow up. I mean, if you're sitting down there, I mean, I'm sitting here looking at these candidates, some of which I've never heard of, and we're junkies here. Okay. And I've never heard of some of these people.
Right. Same here.
What are you going to do to distinguish yourself and move somewhere? I mean, if I'm looking at 10 candidates and they all say they're all robots saying the same thing, and there's not a dime's bit of difference between any of them, which is pretty much true.
Yeah.
How do you, I know that on the other side of the aisle, it's about feeling and it's about checking these boxes, like Pete Buttigieg, who checks all these boxes, except that he's a white. That's the only bad thing about him from the left's point of view. So how do you get anywhere? People have been campaigning for 6 months and they're at 0.6%. Don't know, no opinion is beating them in the polls. So
you are in tough shape if no opinion is beating you.
What do you do? It is. Go to the 538 blog. Don't do it now because I don't want to spend too much time on this. But there's the Vice President Biden is ahead by. He's going down just as we predicted.
Right.
Bernie is number 2 in these polls, but he has nominal support right now. And then there's 18 candidates
Kamala,
between
the Ugandan giant.
Yeah, there's 18.
There's like this tier 2.
There's 18 people between 3 and 6%.
Yeah.
Then there's don't know, no opinion.
Yep.
And then there's like 3 candidates underneath that. Why doesn't one of those candidates come out and just for S&Gs support the tariffs in China for just to come out and get some press?
You think they'll get press.
I mean, China's screwing us is not a bad campaign tactic.
Right.
I mean, they are in some cases it's our fault with the debt and stuff. But I mean, why don't they come out and say, let's get tough with Iran? I mean, why don't they just say anything? Do they think coming out and being the 5,000th Democrat in support of the Green New Deal is going to distinguish them from the next person?
Well, Eric Swalwell is trying with his I'm going to take every gun and I will imprison you if you don't give them over.
Mr. Swalwell, you try coming to my house.
Yeah.
You wouldn't last 5 seconds with me. Try it.
Are you
that guy couldn't serve 10 minutes hard time in prison.
Oh no.
So I don't want to totally unserious, but I continue what I said previously, Jay, that it is not going to be Sanders, it's not going to be Biden. Mm-hmm. This party is not going to nominate an 80-year-old white guy, and I do think we talked about age being a factor.
Yeah.
I think it's an unspoken thing right now. I think age is a factor. Mm-hmm. Race and gender are a factor, but it's unspoken unless you're Kristen Gillibrand, who's out there claiming she's below don't know, no opinion because she's a woman, even though women are ahead of her.
You've got Elizabeth Warren, surprisingly.
Up at like 5.
Kamala, the Ugandan giant. And then Pete Buttigieg. So, as the president says, Buttigieg.
Yeah. I mean, but Sleepy Joe going in the wrong direction. I just continue to believe that it will be somebody at 4% right now will emerge as the loser in the race next year, but as the nominee. And that's what I continue to believe.
Well, we will see how that works out.
We're going to place bets on this at some point. You know how bad,
Yeah.
how screwed up I was last year on the primary day.
Maybe we should create like a Sweet 16 or Final Four kind of
I got a
board.
better
Yeah.
idea. We could create a board. House takes 10%. We could create a board.
I don't think we can do that in this
Oh,
state.
we can't do that? No, of course.
I think it'd have to be for fun.
Minnesota, the state where
Yeah.
breathing is against the law.
Right.
Anyhow, so I just had to bring that. I mean, why don't just answer my question, Jay? Why doesn't one of those people just come out with just something totally out of left field? Mm-hmm. I don't mean left politically. I mean just something unexpected or something bold and different.
Yeah.
Why? I mean, if you're advising somebody at 0.6%, don't just say, okay, look, coming out and repeating the same thing that everybody else is getting you for 6 months has gotten you nowhere.
Yeah. You got to come out with something bold. I agree.
But that's what happens when there aren't policy differences. I go back to the Republican race in 2016, and there were distinct differences between Ted Cruz, Rand Paul, Jeb Bush, Marco Rubio, President Trump. There were real issues, whether that was trade, immigration, role of the federal government.
Yeah.
And in this, there's it's void of anything substantive. Just throw a dart up there and see who it hits in the forehead. So, all right, enough
Bad news.
funny stuff, yeah.
Yeah.
But so very funny though to be below don't know no opinion. That might be a sign you should pick another occupation.
Absolutely.
Anyhow, I want to get into something real quick too.
Yeah.
What is this business? And we mentioned this briefly on our District 281 podcast, whatever that was, a month or two ago.
Yes.
What is going on with this trying to racially equitable suspending kids?
Well,
I mean,
it's
if you have let me just throw out something here.
okay.
And again, this is how some minds work. If you have a policy against X, whatever X is, and you implement that policy regardless of who does it, whether they're male, female, white, black, elementary school, high school, doesn't matter. And that is violated. It's violated again. It's violated again, and it's violated again, resulting in suspension and or expulsion.
Yeah.
How does that become a racial issue?
Well, obviously,
I'm asking that facetiously.
Right. But I mean, you talk to these schools, and they'll say that it's not equitable how these are handed out.
Well, they're the ones handing it out, so
look in the mirror.
What do you mean
I know.
it's not equitable?
Well, I think they believe that certain groups of individuals are getting suspended more than others.
Well, maybe they're behaving.
Could be, or you're in an area where maybe they're not in the minority and you've got a majority group that they're just going to happen to be suspended more. I don't think that's true across the board. In Robbinsdale schools, I guess I would need to see the breakdown of, I don't know. I don't know how that breaks out.
But here's the thing with suspensions. There's always a protocol followed. I mean, I went to school at Robbinsdale schools. I went there when zero tolerance was implemented for fighting. It was enforced, period.
Yeah.
Trust me, it was. Okay. Yeah. I saw incidents. I'm not going to say them on the air, but I mean, I saw fighting between two white kids who got suspended or whatever you want to call it. I saw them between minorities. I saw them interracially, and it was not racially motivated necessarily, but I saw it out on the. I don't recall seeing anything thinking anybody was being treated differently. If anything, I thought the white kids were going to be treated harsher. That was my feeling. That the zero tolerance was implemented to stop the sort of. I think before that there was a very undefined policies in the district. Like, okay, you know what? We're not going to tolerate any of it. We're not going to open anything to interpretation. We're not going to get called racist. We're not going to get whatever. So, I mean, and to my knowledge, they still have zero tolerance for certain things. And for other things, they have a weighted procedure. So if you go through that and you warn a kid, you warn the kid's mom, you know, you take away their lunch, or you take away their cell phone, or you take away their, you give them detention. You know what it's, I mean, we don't have to go through it all.
Right.
Why is it then at the end of the day, if something's violated for a 13th time, it's racist to implement that policy?
Yeah, that's a great question. You know, and I think that even with dealing with like zero tolerance, that can get misused as well.
I agree.
It's like, what about in a bullying situation? You know, fight occurs because somebody's getting bullied. You kick out the bully and the bullied.
Yes.
You know?
Yes, that's zero tolerance. Absolutely. Yeah. You fight back, you'll get suspended just to the other person.
Yep. And we see it as well, you know, with like a weapons policy where some kid forgets a pair of chopsticks in his backpack and gets sent home. Or a Boy Scout, you know, was working on his Eagle project and had things locked in his trunk or whatever, or accidentally left his pocket knife on the floor of the car or whatever and gets suspended. You know,
remember, kids don't have rights at these places. Yeah. Right. But I mean, the legislature, and again, this is something where, you know, I come back to why the state would come in and try to push some. We saw this with bullying and other things. House File 1785 is going to make it, I don't know the status of this bill, doesn't matter, that we cannot suspend preschoolers. Really? I didn't know preschoolers got suspended or expelled, but
you should see them. They're
must be. I guess they're taking knives to preschool or
setting fire to the teacher's hair. It's
eating glue, whatever else they do. I don't know. But this is basically I don't even know what the thinking behind this is. More like we're shaping the young people's minds here.
Yes.
That there are other solutions to suspension. And, you know, I would throw something out, too, that there are some kids, and people don't like it when I say this, but there's some kids who just need to be removed from the classroom. Yeah. You know, because it affects other kids' learning, number one. It absolutely does. And you know what? Here's my thinking. Take that kid. He can go get a job at the car wash for a little while. And you know what? He or she can figure it out.
Yeah.
But you can't be in a situation where you can say, okay, this kid can't get suspended. So we're just going to leave them in a classroom.
Well.
And affect everybody else just as much.
Well, and I'll say this. When I was teaching all the time, there were some very disruptive students. I was teaching in a school, teaching band, teaching general music. There were kids that didn't want to be there, and so they would just cause trouble. And now some of those kids, you know, they only spoke Somali and didn't really speak much English, or they only spoke Spanish, didn't speak much English. You know, and so there were pockets of kids that, you know, they spoke Hmong, didn't speak much English. I would have to remove certain kids from the class because they didn't understand what I was saying. They were bored, I'm sure. And not that I'm boring. I'm probably one of the best teachers I know of. But, you know, they couldn't understand me or whatever, or they were just troublemakers or whatever, you know. They would get sent out. They would be back within 10 minutes, you know. I would call parents. Either the parent didn't speak English and I couldn't communicate with them, or they didn't care, or whatever, you know, and so then the kid's just back in the class, cutting up again, and kick them out, they come back, they kick them out, they come back. And this was a while back when I was teaching, and it has only gotten worse since then, Andrew.
Yeah, I mean, Minneapolis superintendent banned suspensions for nonviolent behavior in pre-K through second grade, believing that the age range represents a critical window for teaching children how to navigate a learning environment rather than removing them for the kind of unremarkable naughty behavior cited in discipline reports she reviewed every month. So now here's the other thing.
Is picking your nose and flicking it at somebody a violent crime in kindergarten?
Depends what comes out. So, the district is, and it's amazing how little, this is from minpost.com, it's amazing how little journalism they actually do there.
It's not that surprising.
Yeah, the data, Minneapolis district suspended 76 kindergartners last year. 76.
Well, keep in mind, though, this is the biggest school district in the state.
Yeah, right.
You know, how many
and that's down, okay, from the 2013-14 season of 355 kindergartners.
Wow.
Now, that shows me, but here's my question.
Yeah.
Where is the evidence that not suspending them has resulted in academic achievement?
That there's no correlation.
Of course
and you
not.
can't prove that.
No, it's all just feel-good stuff.
Right.
And now they're trying to implement this everywhere. That's the point of this bill, is to push this everywhere. So no district has any choices. No district can deal with their own problems. These lame brains in St. Paul and Minneapolis, who have the worst school districts on the face of the earth, are going to implement this everywhere. So now in Little Falls or in Pequot Lakes, they can't decide what their own, and they can't even decide a standard. They're not even going to be able to make their own standards.
It's ridiculous.
Just, I don't know how you taught. I don't know how you did it even for a year, because I couldn't do it for a day. And I'm just being very honest.
That is when it was taking the old VHS tape and popping her in. We're watching Fiddler on the Roof the next 3 days. Be quiet and take some notes.
Now, what age of kids did you teach?
Middle school.
Middle school.
Yeah.
People still didn't know English.
Well, a lot of them were probably fresh.
Fresh off the voting bus. They went to vote and then they went to school.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Yeah, no, it was hard. Absolutely, it was.
Now, you taught for 1 year.
No, I taught for a couple.
Oh, you taught for a couple.
Yeah, but let me tell you, I would take those kids any day of the week over the administration.
Yeah.
I could have taught if it weren't for the administration.
The constraints put on you.
Yeah, it was terrible. It was terrible, and I heard that as bad as they were, I think they just kind of moved them around like deck chairs on the Titanic.
Sure, they got a six-figure salary somewhere else
in the district. They didn't work at this school, so we'll stick them over at that one and see how it works out. It's a great plan.
It's kind of like I'm not comparing them to a sex scandal, but it's kind of like, this priest is accused of something. Okay, we'll take him from Allentown and move it over to, some other city in Pennsylvania. We'll just forget all about it.
Right.
Similar thing. So look for this and Robbinsdale's all over the changes in the district, but they're all over the feel good, meaningless statements that you normally hear from the public education types. It's just, you bring this up, it's borderline orgasmic in there when you bring this up. I mean, I've been following some unnamed school board members, and they're all over the racial inequity. When did that become a part of education too?
I don't know.
Everybody's equal. Come on, everybody's not equal. We all know that. We all have different abilities and different interests.
And that's the way it should be.
The idea we're all going to end up with the same test scores or the same graduation rate. Who put that out there?
If we're all interested and talented in the same things to the same degree, then why is there any need or any desire for people to be carpenters versus being accountants versus being a doctor versus being a woodsmith?
Yeah.
It just, if we were all the same, everybody would do the same thing. I'm not very good at math. I don't often tell, personal stories on the air that much, but I took Algebra 2 in 11th grade, and I started out all right. I started out with like an A in first quarter, and we had 6 grading periods back then. None of this like 2 semesters and that's it. You know, it's like you could actually track and monitor your progress along the way instead of just spitballing stuff. Anyways, trying to remember exactly how this worked out. It was like an A, then a B minus, then a C.
Well, once you fall behind in classes like that,
algebra 2. I mean, algebra 2. All these super hard, different. I don't even know what you call them anymore. That's
problems.
How good I was. Yeah. Formulas.
Oh, okay,
right,
sure.
right. But by the end of
quadratic formula. I think I still remember.
Yeah. By the end of it, I'm like getting C minus D.
Sounds like me with trigonometry.
But here's the thing: I was going in for extra help, right? I mean, I was actually trying.
Yeah.
And the algebra 2 teacher, I'll never forget him, Mr. Priest, felt so bad for me that he passed me. I got a D minus on that last, but I didn't deserve a D minus, other than I was going in for extra help like every day.
Oh, you didn't grease his palm behind
No. I was actually trying to learn.
Yeah.
But then the final multiple choice, A.
Really?
That's the moral of that story.
Well, I can tell you multiple choice questions. I had a way that I took those.
Yeah.
I mean, there was a way I studied through that. I'll get into that some other time. But I can relate too, because I was not a hard worker in high school.
Yeah.
Okay? I graduated with honors. I was a good student, but having fun was my number one priority.
Mm-hmm.
And I can tell you, and this is a good lesson for all you youngsters out there, your study habits, part of why I never finished my degree, your study habits in high school, you will take them with you to the next level.
Yeah.
And I learned, I slid by in high school with A's and B's and everything.
Yeah.
Boy, I got to college, and it was a different world. And I'm going to tell you, even North Hennepin was a different world.
Yeah.
You're an adult now, and nobody, there's no conferences with your mom. There's
they don't
no
coddle you.
Yeah, there's nothing like that. You've got to do it on your own. They expect you to.
Mm-hmm.
They don't. You're paying to go. So they don't care if you don't ask for help. They're not going to seek you out.
Yeah.
So it's a different story, and I can tell you that. I can tell you, I can count on one hand the amount of nights I sat home and did homework.
Mm-hmm.
It was sports. It was, hey, what's going on tonight? It was working. I was working a lot because I wanted money and I wanted wheels. And I can tell you that I spent no time at all. I didn't even think about what was going to happen after high school.
Yeah.
I mean, to this day, high school is the best 7 years of my life. But the point is that, you got to develop those habits. And it's so important that kids be challenged. I look back on it, and I think if I'd have been challenged in every subject more, I just wonder what would have happened to me later. I was in advanced math, but I could have gone further had I been pushed, but I didn't.
No.
Didn't want to. I could get my B and go party, and that was what mattered. I was in advanced history, but that was easy because I had a great memory. So it was, it was... I already knew it all before I got there. I'd read my grandpa's Civil War books before I ever studied the Civil War. So it was, but those study habits and being challenged have to happen at a young age. They don't change.
Right. And I think this is where I was going, though. Like,
you were going somewhere.
Well, no.
I
that's
interrupted
good.
you.
No, but that's good because I think in your case, this applies too, where when it's something that you're interested in, for you, it was history. For me, it's music. I excelled at that. You excelled at history because you knew it. You loved it. Math, I still don't use math very much. I can do what I need to do.
Yeah.
I can, keep track of finances. I can measure twice, cut once, and it's still not perfect, but it's good enough.
Those little dashes there mean something.
Yeah,
right?
I know, yeah. But I learned enough to be able to do what I need to do. But you know what? It's the stuff that I'm passionate about, that I poured the most time into, that mean the most to me and are the most effective for me now. And so I think that we do a real disservice sometimes because we're pushing kids into getting ready for college, but some of them belong in a trade school, some belong in a 2-year college, some belong in an apprenticeship program, some belong in jail. No, I'm just kidding.
No, right.
Yeah.
Some belong flipping burgers. Here's the other thing. You're 100% right about that, but that will never happen at a public school setting because the economics aren't there. If you had private vouchers, Jay, the private schools would react to the marketplace. Mm-hmm. You mentioned trade schools. Where are the job shortages right now?
Trade schools.
It is electricians, mechanics, carpenters. Mm-hmm. There is such a shortage there. Welders.
Yeah.
And I work with some of these people. I don't do that, but and they can't find enough qualified people. Mm-hmm. So you can go to a trade.
They make good money, too.
They absolutely do. And you're not saddled with $100,000 in debt when you get your degree in African American studies.
Granted, I don't want to throw more money into the unions, but...
No, but trade schools are different.
Right.
It's... they're not all unionized, but,
right. Well,
but the point is that you've got to prepare people for the job market. And I don't see that going on. I don't see that going on whatsoever. But, and you know what? You want to keep kids that are disruptive in school. I mean, all that does is keep the kids that are trying to learn and are passionate about a subject like you were, like I was.
Yes.
All you're doing is preventing them from learning. That's all that's going on. So enough feel-good stuff. That's a long enough opening, But it's good discussion. I mean, we should. I'm going to throw out a show topic here.
Yeah,
that we ought to just tell stories about schooling.
Yeah,
sometime. I got good ones. In fact, I'm a Cooper '95 grad. Yeah. We've got a Facebook page, and when I went to my 20-year reunion, that was kind of how it started. Mm-hmm. I wonder what they'd think about me telling stories on the air about things going on. I won't name names, but they'll know who they are because everybody listens to this program.
Right.
So
of course they do.
We'll see. There were interesting smelling things in locker rooms. There were, I remember somebody's underwear getting thrown out of the library window.
Boy.
I mean, all sorts of stuff. Not that I partake.
Of course not.
Yeah.
No.
I mean, it'd be a hate crime to steal somebody's mascot.
I might have a tale or two. I don't know.
Maybe one or two I can't say on the air.
Yeah.
Although we don't have standards and practices here.
Well, that is true.
We still sort of observe them, though.
Yeah, this is a family show, and we want your kids to be as well versed in the education they're not getting in civics class. So, yeah. Like I was talking about at the beginning of the show, Operation Mindcrime, an underground revolution, work at overtime. There's a job for you with the system, boy. We've talked a ton about advisory commissions. I mean, we mention it almost every show that advisory commissions are super important. Those are groups of citizens just like you, that, they get together for whether it's the purpose of a charter, city charter, or managing environmental quality, or parks and rec, or planning, which is zoning and all that kind of stuff. And they get things from the city staff and from the city council, and they go and they do their homework and they discuss it and they talk about it and give it a recommendation, yes or no, to advise the city council or the county board or the school board on what to do. Those recommendations are sometimes taken, they're sometimes not, but really it's entry-level governance. You're able to get in and have a voice. It's an appointed position, it's not an elected position, but it gives you the resume pieces that you need for people to say, hey, this person's been involved. They must know their stuff because they've been serving on this commission. Mm-hmm. I would consider them or consider looking into them for a city council position.
Something we preach on here, involvement in official capacity. And there, of course, are non-official ways, too, but the official capacities are you learn the intricacies of government, you learn the how things work, how a city code or an ordinance starts, and how permits work, and how zoning, all the different types, development of a city. There's so much of an education,
Right.
in that.
And you get to work hand in hand with somebody on the city council because they usually put a liaison on each.
And city
commission.
staff,
and,
too,
And,
yeah.
and schools and county, same thing. We're just
Yeah.
kind of shorthanding it there for you. But yeah, absolutely.
I think in the cities they have the most influence. I think it's not
Probably.
the case in schools and counties. Not that they're there for show. I'm not saying that. I'm saying I think there's a more direct. The smallest form of government. There's the most.
Right.
I don't know what you want to call it.
Yeah.
The most clout over.
Right. Although I would say if you're thinking of running for county board someday, getting on a county level commission is probably a great place to start so you can start learning about that stuff. You can still use that as a resume piece running for a city council position to work into a county
Yeah, you might
board.
pull your hair out on those, but
Yeah, that's probably true. You'll be in the minority if you listen to this show.
I never noticed I had a receding hairline until I was on the planning commission in Crystal. So I mean, it can happen.
Yeah. City, county, school government, it is supposed to be nonpartisan. I mean, that's the other thing we know. We talk about a lot. It's not supposed to be Republican or Democrat. It's not supposed to be Green Party. It's not supposed to be Libertarian or Constitution Party. It just is residents getting together and making the law, keeping the law, changing the law. It should be just the legislative branch, but they kind of cross and blur the lines a little bit. But regardless, it's supposed to be nonpartisan.
Well, and here's the other thing. In my opinion, these commissions are supposed to be somewhat independent.
Yes.
They're not shills to push an agenda through.
Right.
I mean, let me give you a good example. I mean, we've talked about my service on the City Code Task Force in Crystal. I can tell you straight up, and I know I said this on the show that we talked about this, the city council staff, that would include Ann, the city manager, and Troy Gilchrist, our attorney there, none of them told us what to do.
Yeah.
Ever. They didn't tell us how to do it. Troy was there for looking legal things over, and there were certain things we couldn't do and certain things we couldn't, and
Right.
you have to have it looked over by somebody. Ann was more there to facilitate. Ann Norris, the city manager. We never got told what to do. We had city council, Mayor Adams showed up to our meetings, never said a word the entire meeting except to say hello. Olga Parsons, Jeff Kolb, a bunch of them showed up, and they let us do our work. Now that is an independent task force.
Yes.
And they didn't pass everything that we sent to them. They passed maybe 7 out of 10.
Yeah.
Some of it they had the final say. I mean,
Right.
that's the way it's supposed to be.
They're elected.
Yeah, but some of these don't quite have that and have an agenda or a hidden agenda or whatever you want to call it associated with it.
Right. Well, like a lot of cities just got done redoing their comprehensive plans.
Yeah.
And I know.
And then that varies a lot, the makeup of those.
It
but
does.
yeah.
But I know that they, let's go to Big Lake, for example. They had a group of citizens, and they would break up into groups and discuss certain things. But the conversation was very much guided by consultants that they had brought in.
Yeah.
It was not so independent. And they were very much steered toward certain outcomes.
Right.
Now, that's one way of having city interference, and
Well, and it's more, this is the problem I have with it. You're setting up a task force of citizens
yeah,
to decide what their city is going, that they live in, pay taxes in, send their kids to school in,
Yeah.
is going to look like. Yet, some consultant from Timbuktu is there going, well, see, here's the way we do it now. We do this and this and this, and it's like, well, wait a second here. But Jay, it's got the look that the citizens are the ones that came. You know what I'm saying? Like it's totally deceiving.
yeah,
Of the citizens didn't originate it. They didn't, come up with it. They were kind of led in a certain direction. And that's not an independent task force or anything even close to it.
no,
It's like they're going to make sure that their outcome is now, and I'll tell you what, every city does it a little bit differently. You know what I mean? There's some I know Crystal's back in the previous back in 2008 put together their task force, which was largely made up of the mayor at the time. We all know who she was. City council people, staff, planning commission members, and a handful of citizens at large.
Yes.
I'm okay with having somebody from the planning commission, but not everyone. You know, I mean, that's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
Because they're already serving in some capacity. It's something to bring in outside people would be. I think they had like 1 or 2 people from every ward or something. It was just, but the people serving outnumbered the people not serving. So you got the predictable result from that. You got the predictable. We want the walkable, bikeable, complete street. High density housing next to transit, which wasn't written by any citizen. Okay, I mean, come on here, we're not all that stupid. I mean, that's like a 8-year-old turning in a book report in Shakespeare. Okay, you know that's false.
Well, I was reading Shakespeare by 8, but my comprehension level, I think, was arguable.
Yeah.
But I was
Get those Cleveland notes. You know how I got Cleveland notes?
How?
An episode of The Cosby Show.
Yeah.
Theo and Cockroach had to read Macbeth, and they got Cleveland notes. And that's how I got through Romeo and Juliet in 9th grade. That's no joke.
Yeah.
I got them from the. I don't know if it was the head of the county library or where I got them, but I got Cleveland notes to help me.
They had the notes at the library.
Maybe it wasn't the library. Maybe it was a bookstore or something. I don't remember. But maybe it was 10th grade. One of my friends had a car, and that's how we got there and got them. So maybe it wasn't the library. Maybe it was like a bookstore or it was something like that. But remember, we tried to see if there was a movie. We were going to rent a movie to watch it, because we couldn't understand it. So, yeah, it's like, let's go watch the movie, see the play.
Yeah.
And
Leonardo DiCaprio, and that one hadn't come out yet, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay, so anyways, they're supposed to be nonpartisan, not skewed to the right or to the left. They're supposed to be issues that as a city you deal with. Again, the environment, again, zoning, again, the charter. And some places, this is where things started to creep in, and things started to become more partisan because our local elections have become more partisan. And you've seen especially the DFL in this state try to weasel their way into places where they are strong, and maybe not so much into places where they're not strong. They try a different tactic there, but to politicize these or partisanize these races, and the beginning of that, I think, are like the human rights commissions. They were created. They start tackling issues that I believe are very left of center. That's where you'll get a lot of things about. Like passing a resolution stating, this was before the whole gay marriage thing in Minnesota, stating that domestic partnerships are acceptable, or we recognize them, or we support them, or whatever. I know.
No, they'd read it in a city code.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, I mean, human rights commissions, which were intended to be like mediators between law enforcement and citizens,
right?
They were created 60 years ago during the civil rights era, during the time of a lot of civil unrest, war protests, and things like that. What have they morphed into? A human rights commission today is basically a basin for any left of center social policy that wants to be through, whether that's racial equity, whether that's treating transgenders or gays, or anything to do with race, anything to do with any kind of Muslims, anything like that. It's where they sit there and they make little feel-good statements. But it's gone beyond that now. Now they're pushing through organizations like GARE, which we talked about on a previous episode, who they're working with.
Episode 68.
68, I knew you'd know.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's getting these things are being written into code now. Very different than. But here's the thing: if you've got a commission and you're just issuing statements and resolutions, what are you really doing?
Yeah.
And it shows me that there's no differences. It's like a college campus. There's no differences of opinion. There's no dissent allowed.
Right. Well, that's because most of these, and this is how it works. And the DFL, getting elected into these local offices, into city councils and stuff, then go find people in their pipeline and they fill up the advisory commissions and boards, and then they raise up the cream of the crop and push them into those roles when those folks move on and run for state house, state senate, county government, things like that.
And they've been trained on all the social, they've gotten all the little groups that they've associated with. Oh yeah, that's the person who's blah blah blah, and so that's how they get in there. So
absolutely it is. So and by now creating a lot of groups that are specialized, if you will, it's not just the environment, and we'll find out looking at some of these, it's committees on bicycles or committees that are born out of the conversations with GARE, and we'll get into this, but that's never what was intended. Is to become pushers, if you will, of a progressive left wing ideology, and it's where you stop. And this is why local politics is nonpartisan. You're supposed to represent everybody, And if you are pushing something that only benefits a handful or a minority of people, then you are leaving out everybody else in the city. And the city is too small to be able to,
On those thoughts.
Yes.
On those thoughts. City of Shoreview, Minnesota.
Yes.
We know where that is.
Yes, we do.
Northeast.
Yeah, well, North Center, I guess, 35W.
That's true, North Center.
35W.
I think of anything east of 35W as the east. Bike and Trails Committee, they have now formed. It advises the city council in matters concerning the development of bikeways, trailways, and alternative means of transportation. Now, that may sound kind of harmless.
Right.
But it's not.
No.
Okay, because you read that statement, and Jay, you and I are very good at code language. You read that statement, Jay. What do you really see? What do your eyes and head tell you when you read that statement?
There are really 4 words that mean anything in here.
Yeah.
Alternative means of transportation.
Yeah, exactly.
And there's a reason the cars are not included.
Yeah. It's the war on cars.
Yes. And that's why down at the bottom they have a link to the Bicycle Alliance of Minnesota.
Right. The whole mission of that is to try to get people out of their cars and take an alternate mode of transportation. There's nothing else. That's all you need to know about this committee, period. So it's not just that the Met Council is pushing this or well, it seems like every organization is pushing this. But it is now cities have their own committee. It's not enough that they're getting it, that everything rolls downhill.
Right.
That's not enough.
Well, Big Lake, y'all have the same thing out there too. I can't find it on their website, mind you, but they also have a bicycle committee out there. And really the whole purpose is to create more trails and more bike lanes to give bicyclists more freedom and to restrict cars more.
Okay, now you're in Big Lake. Okay, that's not like Minneapolis.
No, not at all.
I mean, people in Big Lake work in Anoka, Elk River, St. Cloud even. But how are they supposed to get there and back?
North Star.
Yeah. Well, I work right by North Star, and judging by what I see go by, they ain't taking it.
No.
But North Star's part of this too. It's all part of the a certain, I mean, they know they're not going to get rid of cars 100%. Their goal is to get rid of 5%, 10%, and have it be a short, over time, paper cutting everybody.
Right.
So, I mean, but you're going to have to account that most people are going to have vehicles.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, so why are there committees trying to? That's a bigger change than anything any committee could come up with.
Mm-hmm.
It's way bigger than putting up an apartment building or having a new park or a new city hall. That is world altering to have that.
Absolutely.
Shoreview, another city on our list.
You're on the list.
Our list is growing. Big Lake's been on there
But
for a while.
it doesn't just stop there, though. There are so many of these cities that are doing that. I mean, let's take a look at something near us here for a moment. Let's take a look at Golden Valley.
Oh, God.
This is the one that came out of GARE, G-A-R-E, which is the Government Alliance on Race and Equity Program. Again, you can go back to episode, 86 or 68, and learn all about that. But this one, they call this Rising Tides. The Rising Tides
Okay, hold on.
Equity Task Force.
Okay, hold on.
Yes.
GoldenValleyMN.gov, okay, is where you can find this. Look at the very top. I'm showing you on the air here, Jay.
Yeah.
Look at the words underneath Rising Tides.
Trust, inclusion, diversity, equity,
And the most important?
social justice.
Social justice. Meaning if I don't have, the have-nots can take whatever they want from the haves. That's social justice.
Absolutely. I mean, I heard about a story in Dallas, Texas, where the county attorney was not going to prosecute people that stole things that were under, I think, like $700 if they really needed it. I mean, that's the direction that social justice
In Dallas.
is going. Yes.
Okay, not in San Francisco.
Dallas.
Okay.
So this is where we're headed. This is
Well, you know what? Hold
social
on.
Justice.
Hold on. Get
Yeah.
on the internet. I want to see everything that's $699 and less that I can take.
Okay.
So yeah, let's
We might be
my
here
groceries.
for a while. There's lots of things.
Take
Yeah.
my car payment.
Yeah.
So anybody who wants
Well-
$699 can rob a bank.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know if it works out like with banks, but yeah.
Inspired by the phrase "a rising tide lifts all boats." The city's
Inspiring
equity
it
plan, blah, 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 blah. So they're going to create a task force to develop action items and implement strategies for specific goals within the plan. Now, what do you want to bet? The people on this committee are all of one mind, all dedicated to, social justice, their version of it.
Right.
And so on and so forth. I mean, what do you want to bet that there's one vision on this task force?
The city council or city staff, I don't know which, has already provided the vision. There is no room for diversity of opinion on the diversity committee.
Really?
Golden Valley Rising Tides Task Force will meet monthly beginning January 2019 and focus on ways to diversify employee recruitment, ensure equity in city programming services and facilities, communicate the equity plan to community members, increase diversity in city boards, commissions, advisory groups, and elected officials, eliminate potential biases when reviewing city contracts and RFPs, and review community outreach and education initiatives.
So
Sounds like they're told what they need to do.
Yeah. So basically, you're going to push this. We've already decided on the plan.
Right.
We're just going to use you to, make it look like citizens are. Why don't they just get a group of children to come in and do this then?
Well,
Children might actually have better ideas than some of the adults.
well, that's true.
But I mean, if you're going to create a task force on this, I mean, Why do you need to create a task force if you've already decided what you're going to do with all of this?
Because it gives the feeling of consensus, Andrew.
Consensus, the absence of leadership.
It's not that this isn't the city council just deciding these things. This is a group of dedicated individuals in the community that have dedicated themselves to being able to make Golden Valley a more equitable place to live. But we all know that equity is really code language for taking from somebody and giving to somebody else without rhyme or reason. It's just to do it because they feel that things are unfair. It is the equalization of outcomes, not the equalization of opportunity.
Well, and I'm kind of curious, diversify employee recruitment. I mean, what is that basically the whites need not apply sign?
Well,
I mean, you got to remember some of these jobs require training. You can't just walk into, take your police force, for example. Mm-hmm. Okay, they've got to go through a cadet program. There's only so many people to choose from. Mm-hmm. Firefighters have to go through, first aid and whatever else.
Yeah.
And there's only so many people of a certain color to go out and hire. Mm-hmm. You don't just wake up one morning and become a city manager. You don't just wake up and become a city planner. Some of them require degrees. Some of them you have to work your way up for. So the idea that you could just go out and hire a, quote, more diverse staff, which means fewer white people,
right,
and fewer white men. I mean, that's what it means. They don't say that, but that's what they're really saying. Mm-hmm. But you have to have qualified pool of people to choose from. So this goal in and of itself is right away. I mean, maybe that's the point. Mm-hmm. Here's a thought. Maybe that's the point. The point is they know this is unattainable.
Yeah.
So the goal will always be there. It'll never be right. It'll never be equal. Mm-hmm. So there's always work to do.
Well, that's true.
So maybe
they assure themselves a job.
Right. Ensure equity in city programming, services, and facilities. I'm sorry, if you dial 911, do they ask what race you are?
No, they better not.
If you walk into the community center, are there separate drinking fountains?
There better not be.
So what does that mean? I mean, what is unequitable about a community center or a hockey rink or a park?
Well, remember when we were talking about Gare back in episode 68, that there was supposedly some issue with the way that trash was collected that was not equitable. And so I don't understand. It doesn't make sense to me.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. This is probably one of the few of these newer left-leaning commissions where I do see that they have some minutes. Well, for the first two meetings, I see minutes. Starting with the third month and starting in March, I don't see any minutes that are.
Well, only approved minutes would be put on.
Oh, that's right.
I don't know.
Well, by now, March should be on there.
Unless they didn't have a meeting or something didn't get approved.
They had an agenda. They should have had a meeting.
Well,
but like the bicycle commission, no minutes. You don't know what they're talking about.
That's the whole point, though.
Yeah.
You have to show up to all these meetings.
Right.
And if you don't, right, Mayor Bowman, if you don't, then the hell with you. Your opinion means nothing.
And let me say this. I think that if government is meeting, whether it's an advisory commission or a city council or a county board or whatever it is, there should be an agenda put out beforehand, and there should be meeting minutes written up and posted, if not also a recording of that meeting.
Yeah.
I think that is, in 2019, that's acceptable.
I think, it's funny. I mean, we're in an era where we're talking about 5G, we're talking about automated cars, and yet a city can't put an audio recording of a meeting on their website. I mean, Windows 3.1 could put up an audio recording. Okay, so it's not that hard.
Yeah.
I mean, it does amaze me sometimes that still in 2019 that is not done.
Yeah.
And how long you and I have been bitching about this? I mean, it's like, I wonder if I'm going to die first or if every meeting is going to be recorded.
Yeah. I don't know.
I guess it depends when I die.
I guess so. I guess it depends how well we do in our job, whether they start getting recorded and posted or not, since that's one of our big contention points when we talk with people. Rochester is another. They have a pedestrian and bicycle advisory committee. That's great stuff there. I mean, but they also have something called a Committee on Urban Design and Environment. They came up with an acronym CUDE. CUDE.
CUDE?
It doesn't roll off the tongue very well.
I like Dumb and Dumber better.
Yeah. But urban design, we're talking about Rochester. This is not an urban area by any stretch of the imagination. This is where people with a lot of money go to go to the Mayo Clinic and have a nice environment to recoup in, and it's built for sometimes the families of those that come and stay that aren't in the hospital. This is a really nice small city. I don't understand urban design in a city like Rochester.
Well, remember, I mean, the whole point of the plan is to take the sub out of suburb.
Right.
Rochester's not a suburb. I would call that maybe a regional big city, but it really isn't a big city the way we think of a big city.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, again, it's the one size fits all thing going everywhere, and it's to stop what they call urban sprawl, which is going to places that nobody's 30 years ago, Elk River was a farm.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, urban sprawl because there's demand and there's, the people are willing to go out there. Is what created it, and that's again openly being opposed now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Bloomington. Bloomington. We love Bloomington, especially right now. Oh, boy. What a beautiful getaway. They have a couple of winners. One of them is called the Creative Placemaking Commission. What is placemaking? We haven't really talked about placemaking a ton on this podcast.
Isn't that the holder? In the football, he does a placemaking for the kicker?
I think that's place kicking.
Oh, okay.
I think... do they use that term anymore? I think they do.
I don't know. Maybe on kickoffs, but the NFL has successfully made the kickoff the most uneventful thing of the game.
Yeah. Yeah, that's terrible. I love football, don't get me wrong.
I love it a lot less.
All right.
I don't like anything.
Here is the definition for placemaking for all of you. Okay, placemaking is a multifaceted approach to the planning, design, and management of public spaces. Placemaking capitalizes on a local community's assets, inspiration, and potential with the intention of creating public spaces that promote people's health, happiness, and well-being.
Okay, I have no idea what any of that just meant.
Right, exactly.
So, doesn't my local park do that?
Well,
or my bar down the street gives me happiness. And
right. Well, this is the way that they kind of justify what they do in planning and zoning. They create a place where people can be without venturing too far out of it. This is about the wider sidewalks. This is about alternate modes of transportation. This is about mixed-use development, high-density housing. Yeah. The placemaking is all about creating a little space for a community.
Yeah, it's called my property. That's my little space.
Right.
Right?
Yes. Absolutely.
Not a wider sidewalk. That's not my space.
Yeah. But so that's what placemaking is all about.
So they got a committee there. What are they doing?
Well, They establish strategies and improve work plans for Bloomington's creative placemaking initiatives. They promote and market placemaking activities to Bloomington residents, visitors, employers, developers, and the media. They adopt decision-making criteria and processes for use of resources and project selection, cultivate relationships with project hosts, placemaking partner organizations, and artists, reviews placemaking proposals and makes recommendations, and submits annual work plans and progress reports to the City Council and Artistry Board of Directors. I didn't know that Bloomington was a big artist's haven, but they mentioned it twice there.
The art, is that graffiti? Is that an art museum? How do wider sidewalks, what does that have to do with art? What does high density housing have to do with that?
Well, we've talked about that a little bit, where we've what was the term?
Open streets?
Not open streets, but they started to move into cultural. There was a term for it.
So what? The Jews have their street, and the Christians have their street, and the blacks have their street. Now, isn't that? That's not bringing a community together. That's separating everybody.
Right. And so, certain areas where you have a certain concentration, the artwork would more reflect that culture.
So in Little Italy, we'd have pictures of Mussolini everywhere.
Well, I don't know about that.
I'm just throwing something out there silly. And as soon as a Christian figure it goes up, then there'll be a big hubbub.
Oh, right? You're not going to have that.
Yeah, no, not a chance.
No, but what do you do then once you have a group that, and this happens, say you have a group of African Americans that they become African Americans. Let's say they emigrate here from the Democratic Republic of Congo, and they move into Minneapolis, and they have this area kind of transformed to reflect their culture, but then they get older. Their kids go through the school system here. They want a house out in the suburbs. A new group moves into this area, right?
Natural migration happens all the time.
Right. So what do you do when you have a bunch of people that aren't from the Democratic Republic of Congo that are now living in an area that is designed for people from the Democratic Republic of Congo?
It becomes a ghost town. It becomes
it's just another reason for the area to spend more tax money on refurbishing it.
Right. Everything will be used as an excuse to be torn down and rebuilt into something else. They'll make a northern loop out of it or something. It'll be used as an excuse for government to come in and redo the property somehow.
Right.
That's what it'll become. But come on, do we have streets for artwork? What happened to getting from one place to another? Mm-hmm. What happened to that? What happened to the guy selling hot dogs? Like in Chicago, there'd be somebody selling pizza out on the street. What's wrong with that?
Nothing.
So why do we have to redo our entire nation here? Mm-hmm. I have not heard the case for doing that. Actually, I have. Yeah. And I think the case is idiotic. But, how do you...
Right.
I don't... Look, here's the thing. I hate to say this again because it always sounds like a downer. But these people are so far ahead of us on implementing things.
Yeah.
You can't... You don't have enough... Pardon this simile, I think is what it's called. You don't have enough ammo to shoot at all these people.
Right.
Okay, so that's... What do you call that?
Yeah, we just want to say for the record, we're not talking about real ammo here.
No, but you don't have enough figurative ammunition to shoot at all these targets.
Right.
I don't know what that's called. A metaphor, something like that. English class, I was looking at Susie. Anyhow, you don't. How do you? If you're a Golden Valley resident, Jay, and you're opposed to this, you're not going to be appointed to this task force. No chance. Mm-hmm. So what do you do to go after this stuff and say, look, I don't know what are these people who represent me doing with my time and my tax dollars, and what the hell are they implementing in my name? You know, what is
Yeah.
Bloomington doing with their blah blah blah? I don't even care what it is.
Yeah.
I mean, what's whatever it is, it's bad. I mean, where
I'm
do
sure
you
they work hand in hand with their sustainability commission, which I
Yeah.
know you're a fan of.
Of course I am. The
Yeah.
S word.
Yeah.
To me, that's the S word.
Yeah.
Not not that.
Yeah.
Sustainability. I would, if I were on a city council,
Mm-hmm.
I would entertain a motion to remove that word from the English language. Tell Mr. Webster that we
Yeah.
don't want it in there anymore. Because I've never heard of a more meaningless word. I mean, that
Right.
word is everywhere.
Yeah.
It is the S.
I knew you'd love that.
It's horrible.
Yeah. You know,
But, I
but-
mean, where do you begin in a city? Golden Valley, right next door to us here.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
well, the city council decides who or what advisory commissions there are. I mean, look at Crystal. They got rid of the Human Rights Commission because it wasn't doing anything. There was no use for it
they
anymore.
replaced it with the
Community outreach.
community
task force.
outreach that
Yeah.
had specific goals, specific, things that not necessarily from the council,
Right.
but more from, what do we do? What's, and some things they've done have worked, some things they've tried haven't. But the point was, instead of just sitting and having a human rights commission, because that's what we've always had,
Right.
we proposed something different.
So, really, the only way to get a handle on this is to sit on the city council and have enough votes to say we don't need this one anymore, or we should have this one instead, or, and these should be wide commissions that aren't like super focused on one thing, like bikes, like sustainability, like placemaking.
That's for a task force too, not for a commission.
I don't even think it belongs there. I mean, there is nothing that is stopping people that are bike enthusiasts from forming a private club and then bringing their concerns to the city council,
That's a good
petitioning
point.
them.
Yeah.
That's the way this stuff should be done.
Yeah, it's almost like you have to have a task force or a commission on everything. Should everything have a city sponsored? This is no different than a small business association. What you're just saying,
Right.
Small businesses get together, bring their concerns to the council or city staff, and they work on them.
Exactly.
Why do bike riders need their own commission?
Yeah, they
It's
don't.
recreation. Why doesn't that fall under parks and rec?
Yeah.
Isn't biking recreation?
Yeah.
Last time I checked, it was.
Yeah. This club should bring their stuff to the city council. City council then should send it to Parks and Rec, who should send it back to the city council once with a recommendation.
Yeah.
That's how it should work.
Send it back DOA.
Yeah. Yeah. But the cities are not the only ones that are doing this. I mean, the
they're
counties are doing this. The school districts are doing this. Osseo area schools, ISD 279.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, I
some
know we're
people
running
on
out of
that
time
school
here.
board,
But,
by the way.
yeah.
Should-
Well, you talk to them for me.
I talk to everybody.
Oh, my word.
I don't talk to people, they talk to me.
Yeah. They have a couple of screwy ones too. They have a human sexuality curriculum advisory committee. I mean, you can just imagine what that's like.
I don't want to know what that's made up of. I really don't. I think it's, it's again, our schools way off track from what they're supposed to be doing.
Right.
Way off track.
Uh-huh.
And I don't, I've got my opinion on things like sex ed. I'm not going to lay it out right now, but because I don't want to take up another half an hour here. But, you get to a point where I think we're at this point where the schools have become the arbiters of what's good and what's right and wrong
In society, yeah.
and they push one point of view, and anything outside of that. I mean, we got people, you got people worried about saying the Pledge of Allegiance, but they have no problem with fourth graders talking about,
Transgenderism.
yes.
Yeah.
I mean, come on. There's such a the priorities are so
We got kids.
effed up.
We got kids coming out of school that think that there's 175 different genders, and today they're a sheet metal door or a You know,
well, your gender is whatever you say it is. You know, the anybody could use any bathroom they want. There's no, we're all worried about bullying. We're all worried about making sure everybody feels good. It's just way off track. And again, it's a way for progressives to push their views. It's a way for them to push, get young minds to think a certain way. Mm-hmm. That's really the goal here, is to shape the people of tomorrow.
Yeah.
And
that's the thing. And they have made it so that you have to go through their institutions unless you're privileged enough to be able to homeschool or put them in a private school, because they won't allow vouchers.
Right. They've written the law so that you have to go through, and then they've written the law so that certain careers require this and that and whatever. And, no disrespect to teachers out there. And because I do have a lot of respect for teachers as individuals, their unions can, kiss my arse. But I have respect for teachers as people. But I really question sometimes, if I'm going to learn, Jay, let me throw this out here. If I'm going to learn about business, if I'm going to learn about, something like that, why am I learning it from somebody who's never held a private sector job in their life?
Absolutely.
With all due respect to them. If I'm going to learn about law, shouldn't a lawyer, a practicing lawyer, isn't that where the best, they don't have a degree in teaching. Okay.
Right.
So I mean, don't we have to expand our view of what a teacher is?
Yeah, I think that's true. I think that the more that you bring people who do the job in, the more they learn. But,
but there's certain basic skills everybody has to have. So I'm of two minds on it. But
instead, they're too busy teaching them about this garbage. And it's ridiculous. So they've got that. They also have a district equity leadership team advisory. So it's
same thing. Different district, same thing.
Yep.
Tear off 279 and put on 281, and you wouldn't know the difference.
That's true.
I bet their policies are the same. Their mission statements, I don't even have to read. I don't want to read them. I don't have to. I already know what they say. We're so good at this, Jay. We don't even know. We don't even have to look. I already know.
That's all right. I do the unsavory things for us. But again,
that's why you get paid the big bucks.
Right. But again, I mean, with these commissions out at 279, would you think that there's a single agenda or meeting minutes or something to tell you what they're doing? Or no, there's nothing. You don't know what they're talking about. You don't know what their goals are. You don't know, because they don't tell you. They list it out. They have 2 or 3 lines telling you what they do, and that's all it is. And if you want to know what they do, too bad. They're teaching your kids, and you're going to have to put up with whatever they teach.
And by the way, it's more than just parents that need to know this stuff. I mean, there's some provisions in there about telling parents the night before they're going to be taught or showed something. But society at large has an interest in this. I mean, what kids are being taught is, of interest to everybody.
It should
not
be.
just their parents.
Yeah.
I'm certainly interested in it. I'm not a parent, but boy, I am interested in what they're being taught.
I am as well. I know my kids have been sick and tired of having those conversations throughout the years. So, what'd you talk about in science today? Okay. What do you mean? Can you explain more about that to me? Ah, great. What do you guys read in English? My kids got so tired of that. But you have to be that way as a parent. And so it's just...
My mom and dad were more like, bring it home. I want to see it.
Yeah.
I'm not talking to you about it anymore.
They don't do homework anymore. That's the other problem.
Well, that's right. Homework is racist now.
Yeah.
That's racist too, right?
Yes, it is. Because not everybody has the environment to support them doing homework. So...
just a short story on that.
Yeah.
I remember one time I had to watch something on TV. So I had to watch something on TV for school.
Yeah.
And my dad was so upset because he wanted to watch Monday Night Football. We only had one TV, and it was like the Bears and back when the Bears were really good, it was like, you got to, he was fuming because we only had one TV in the house and he couldn't watch Monday Night Football.
Good.
Let me tell you.
Oh boy.
But, hey, I had to have a TV. What about the kids with no TV? What about the poor kids? Mm-hmm. Aren't they feel left out?
Absolutely. Although now
there's no excuse. I mean, even the people on welfare were providing them with an iPhone, so they ought to be able to see it.
Yeah, and if you live in
sure their kids
Dallas, you can just go steal one for less than $700.
Yeah, and I'm sure somehow their kids have a PlayStation 4 and they have all that stuff. I'm sure somehow.
A lot of them do. So how do we fix this? I mean, we kind of said before. I mean, you've got to get on a city council that you can dictate what your advisory commissions are, and you can get rid of the dead weight. You can pare it down. You can make it essential. You can tell people, that's great. You can go form a private group and then come petition us. But where do you start? You start on these advisory commissions. You get onto these advisory commissions, and you put in your 2 cents, even if you don't agree with them. I mean, you don't have to go in. You fill out an application either online or you go down to City Hall or school district headquarters or county headquarters or whatever. And you fill out an application. You interview. You obviously don't want to give away the farm, and you want to talk about being concerned about the environment or this or that. You just you don't want to go in there and say global warming is a hoax, and I think y'all are idiots for, you don't want to do that because you're not going to get on the commission. But what you need to do is be smart about it, and then you get on the commission, and then you can put in your 2 cents, and you can help form policy at that level, give recommendations to the city council, get some work in, learn the business of governing, and then actually run for something, and then you can have a say once you get elected. And so with that, you got to get on. I mean, even looking at something that seems as useless as a human rights commission in this day and age, when there's not a lot of people getting beat down in the streets.
Well, we've redefined every day what a human right is.
Right. Why don't a bunch of you that think like us get on a human rights commission and start cementing in people's rights to protect themselves?
Right. But what is? Yeah, exactly. I mean, what is a human right? It's basically shelter, food, water, and self-defense, and the Constitution.
Absolutely.
That's your human rights.
Yeah.
Okay. Not somebody else paying your doctor bills or somebody else paying for your college. I mean, that's not a human right. Let's get it right here for us.
Right.
Anyhow.
So you want to know how to get on one of these things, or you want help, or you want to get a network of people together, and you want us to come teach you about everything that's going on at the local level so that you can get people motivated to get on these commissions, give us a ring or email us. COMMsolutionsmn@gmail.com. That is COMMsolutionsmn@gmail.com.
And for the record, Queensryche.
Queensryche, yes.
I got right. I can't pronounce it.
2 in a row, 3 out of 4.
2 in a row, 3 out of 4, baby.
Wow.
Taking 3 out of 4 in the 4-game series.
Wow. I mean, yeah, that's pretty good.
I'm due to go over 50 now if history is any kind of judge.
Right.
Now you'll come up with...
Or a Buddha judge.
Yeah, now you'll come up with some obscure thing from, which who knows, I might know. You never
possible.
know. I might know it.
Well, I'll have to put my thinking cap on.
I got the song right.
I've got to do my homework a little better. All right. Well, thank you all for listening again. We really appreciate you. And like I say, reach out to us. Share this podcast far and wide, because that's how people get to know. And that's why we do it, not to hear ourselves talk, even though we have fun. We enjoy it. It's really what you guys do with it that makes us super happy and feel fulfilled, because we do this for you, because we love you, Minnesota. Now it's your turn to get to work.